John McMullen and Jody McDonald, your Mac and Mac guys here on Birds 365. We got our pal from EaglesBlitz.com. That's IGGLES Blitz.com. Fun Eagles website that you should be checking out, Birds fans. It is run by, contributed by, basically is Tommy Lawlor, who joins us here on Birds 365. Tommy, you've been watching the Eagles for a long time, reporting on them, covering them as a beat guy. As ugly with a good Eagle team. We've seen some ugly Eagle games when they weren't a real good team, but this is a team with the best record in the National Football League. You ever remember one like this where we were as high on the Eagles as we were and they had earned it, and just to get their lights turned out by the opposition? I don't know. I've been in town 33 years. I don't know that I've ever remembered a game like this one.
The first one that comes to mind is back in 2004 when they played the Steelers midseason. The final score was 27-3 in that game, but if you watched it, it might as well have been 127-3. I remember watching that play, and Darwin Walker on one run play the Steelers had was driven back like 12 yards off the ball on an inside run. And I just started laughing. I was like, that just tells you the Eagles are non-competitive. When their defensive tackle is 12 yards from the line of scrimmage on an inside run, they got physically dominated in that game. The scoreboard didn't reflect because Pittsburgh just ran. They just said, Eagles aren't going to beat us no matter what we do, so we're just going to run the ball and work the clock. That was a physical domination, and that team went on to go to the Super Bowl. So obviously,
did Darwin make the tackle at least, Tommy? 12 yards down the field.
Lord, no. He was a casual observer on that play. Yeah, that was. I literally remember reviewing. I mean, this goes back to the days when you tape things on VCR. Yeah. I'm sitting rewinding the VHS, and I was like, "What is he doing back there?" that was a rough day. There was not a lot of positive things to say. I guess one of the key things, nobody got hurt. Well, that's about the best thing you can say about Sunday as well, right?
Yeah, Jalen Hurts obviously the scare with the concussion, but it looks like he's okay. So yeah, that's a positive because obviously you got another big game. You can't feel sorry for yourself, but I think I've had a tough time getting to the offense, and there were plenty of issues with the offense, but I can't get past the defense, Tommy. I do want to ask you a Hurts question, but I'll get to that. Defensively, when you look at this game, if you're Sean Desai, you just blush it and say, all right, we had a bad game, or is this indicative of something much more?
No, you obviously embrace it. That's one of the things that Nick Sirianni has preached, and all good coaches do, is accountability, right? Let's not just pretend this was a fluke and move on and hope things get better magically. I tried that in my own life, and it doesn't work too well. Hopefully the Eagles are going to be smarter than that. So what they have to do is sit there, and Nick Sirianni made a great point in his press conference yesterday about missed tackles were a huge issue.
Yeah.
And the average fan says, tackle better. Well, you can't just, don't just yell tackle better and the player tackles better. Why did they miss the tackle? The one image we all have is Nick Morrow reaching for Deebo Samuel and Deebo running right through his arms and going for a long touchdown. You can't lunge. You can't reach. You can't grab at a guy like Deebo Samuel. That's a 220-pound dude who runs hard, has speed. Now, you've got to bring your feet, get your body into him, wrap up, and put him to the ground. You cannot reach for him. If you think about, there was a crossing pattern where Bradley Roby, I'm going to put tackle in quotation marks because I don't know what that was. He just tried to hit a guy with his shoulder, and I yelled at the TV, "Are you freaking kidding me?" I mean, Bradley, that stuff's you don't get away with that in the freaking Pac-12. This is the NFL. Shoulders against.
How about the Big 12?
Yeah, right. You've got to wrap up. He did not try to wrap up. He didn't get his body in the right spot. And so tackling, they'll go over the techniques of get into the proper place, use the proper fundamentals, have your feet with you, get in position, wrap up, bring this guys down. And like the coaches always like to say, one of the things that helps tackling is having guys fly to the football. What you saw on Sunday was a lot of individual effort.
Yeah.
So you have Nick Morrow miss that tackle on Deebo, and Deebo's off the races. Where's everybody else?
That's what I said. They were blaming, and I don't know if you heard, Tommy. Sorry for Jody. I wanted to follow up, but Nick got credited with Nick Morrow with an insane amount of yards after catch by PFF. He's not the only one.
No,
I mean, when you have those bubble screens, you gotta rally to the ball.
absolutely, absolutely, and technically, the whole point of the safety position, you're the fail safe for the defense. You're at the back of the defense. Nobody should get behind you, right? So, if you have guys breaking off long plays, where were Reed Blankenship? Where were Kevin Byard? Um, and part of that, we have to give credit. Kyle Shanahan is the best play caller.
Yes.
Well, right?
I say it all the time.
Sean
All the time.
is a talented young defensive coordinator. He went up against the master and he got owned. There's just no question about it. Sean Desai will learn from that. You have to pay the bills. Sometimes you don't learn always by having things go your way. There's going to be bad days. Buddy Ryan had some days where he was embarrassed with what his team done out there.
Yeah, but Buddy never admit to that. He'd say, "Dare you to name the day." You might believe it, but he never believed that to be the case.
He'd never say it out loud, but somewhere in the back of his head, there's a small room of reality. But yeah. Yeah. So listen, give Kyle Shanahan, the Niners, a lot of credit, and then the Eagles have a lot of blame in that as well. It was just a perfect storm for just a bad day.
And Johnny and I kicked this around a little bit yesterday. He gave the Eagles defensive front line a pass. I didn't. The back seven was the much bigger problem in the Eagles defense on Sunday. Nobody argues that, but part of the game was coming in was the 49ers offensive line, except for Tristan Wiggins, beatable. They're four worst players on offense, and there are four other offensive linemen. How did the Eagles get so little pressure on him? If they're supposed to be able to eat up on the 49er offensive line, didn't come to fruition. Purdy got his 3 seconds, boom, out, hit a guy in stride, off to the races. Where was that defensive line? And I feel legitimately concerned that they're overtaxing some of their players, that they've been a rotational team forever, certainly since Sirianni got here. And I don't know if that caused the bad penalties that Josh Sweat took. Got to try and line up onsides, not offsides. And Hassan Reddick made a great play first series. And then afterwards, how many times did he really make Brock Purdy's life difficult? I fear they're having to use their defensive ends too many snaps, Tommy. Am I over-exaggerating here? Is this we know it's the strength of the team, so should we just leave it alone, or do we have to look at that too and go, yeah, we've got an issue with our D-line as well?
Well, there's a lot of, you ask about 10 different questions there. So there's different layers to that. So first of all, I haven't gone back to really study the game thoroughly. So you see when you rewatch the game, the difference in pressure and sacks. And I feel like they affected Purdy. They only sacked him twice. I felt like they affected him more than that. And
they affected him to the tune of 148 passer rating?
Yeah. Listen, if you get back there in 2.5 seconds and the ball's gone, you've done your job if you got back there in 2.5 seconds. If the ball's out quickly, now that's what I've got to go watch. Was he holding the football? Did he get it out quickly? And then one of the things that I wrote before the game was if the Niners can neutralize the Eagles defensive line through scheme and then winning blocks, then they'll have a good day. And think about the long touchdown on the screen. He has held the ball for what, a second and a half? That ball's out. You got a 50-yard touchdown. So that's going to boost your rating. That's going to boost your numbers. The defensive line, they could have the best pass rush in the history of the NFL. It wouldn't have done a bit of good. So give the Niners credit for scheming to get things done quickly. But I agree with you. The defensive line, they looked dominant those first 6 plays.
Yeah.
They got to Purdy. They pressured him. They made him uncomfortable. There were some other plays where he was pressured and a little uncomfortable, but it wasn't happening enough. And what I don't know is, was it that they were getting blocked? Was the ball getting out quickly? Was it good play calls? I've got to study the game to kind of get a better feel for that. Listen, the Eagles defensive line has to really impact games. If you go back to the first Dallas game, they got a lot of pressure on Dak Prescott. Terrence Steele might as well have been a turnstile at right tackle, right? And the Eagles had sacked him 5 times, got like 10 quarterback hits. They didn't get nearly that much impact yesterday. The other flip side, San Francisco only threw 27 passes. So listen, Purdy wasn't dropping back and throwing the ball left and right. He didn't have to. They were getting these giant chunk plays.
Yeah. Well, and yeah, Jody and I always have that sack versus pressure discussion. I'm more towards your camp. I'd lean towards that camp. This is a perfect example of it. Brock's getting the ball out on time. I'm going to upset Eagles fans. I usually upset Jody when I talk about Brock Purdy, but I'm going to upset Eagles fans. Brock's getting the ball out on time. San Francisco had 3 sacks. None of them were the offensive line's fault. Jalen Hurts holding on to the ball forever.
Yeah.
Forever. And that was going to be my Hurts question. This is where I'm going to upset Eagles fans. Jalen Hurts is a great player. We all know that. MVP candidate for the 2nd consecutive season. But there are a bunch of reporters in the press box who started the conversation that, could you imagine Jalen Hurts with the Niners playmakers and Kyle's scheme? Like, he doesn't have playmakers, and Nick Sirianni's a terrible coach.
Did they say that anywhere within listening distance of A.J. Brown? I don't think so.
Yeah, A.J.'s on the field. And I said, yeah, he wouldn't be a fit for the San Francisco offense because the ball's got to come out. Ball's got to come out on time. That's not Jalen's game.
No.
Is that a detriment at times?
Sure. So Jalen is a playmaker, right? And if you look at Brock Purdy, he's a point guard. He distributes the football.
Yes, Tommy. I've been saying it all week.
So he's the point guard, and it's like people want to say he's not that good. He's
very good.
Let's give it a basketball comparison. So if he's the point guard and he's got an all-star guard beside him, an all-star forward, and an all-star center, and he's getting him the ball and he has 10 or 12 assists a game, and those guys are just lighting it up. Well, it still takes a talented person to get those guys the ball to in positions to make their shots. And if you look at Jalen's kind of the combo guard who's going to come up the floor, and he's going to average 28 points a game and 8 assists a game. And he's going to make plays, and he's going to distribute the ball and just kind of get things done. Jalen's a playmaker, and sometimes to make plays, you have to hold the ball, you have to be creative and go outside the structure of the play. When it works, it's awesome. I mean, we remember the touchdown to Zacchaeus against Buffalo.
Yeah,
it's awesome, right?
Yeah.
That's awesome. Brock Purdy ain't doing that if you give him 100 attempts. That's not happening once. Jalen does it, and you sit there and go, wow, that helps us win a big game. But there's other plays where Jalen's hold the ball, like the play inside the red zone. You're like, just throw the ball away and go to the next down. Second and goal is not the end of the world. 3rd and goal is not the end of the world. Taking a 15-yard sack. Oh my goodness. I was coaching him up as best I could. He just wasn't listening. Get rid of the freaking football, Jalen. Come on. I'm an idiot. I know that.
If Brock Purdy's a point guard this year, he's Magic Johnson because he's playing on an MVP level. We're not talking about a guy who racks up 14 assists and 8 points. No, he's.
You saying he's better than Steve Coulter? Come on now. Let's.
I compared him. I compared him to Mo Cheeks and the great Sixers teams.
There you
go. Mo's in the Hall of Fame, and Jody took that as a criticism. How is that a criticism?
Maurice Cheeks was awesome.
Yeah, exactly. But he is what he is. And that's why scheme.
What he is an MVP candidate, yes.
Yeah, but he's in the right scheme, the right philosophy, the right coach, the right play caller who takes advantage of his skills. That's a big part of it. There's nothing wrong with that. That's what you're supposed to do. But
do we say that about Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid?
Are we going to compare Brock Purdy to Patrick Mahomes? That's where I stop. Patrick Mahomes is different. Patrick Mahomes is Steph Curry. Patrick Mahomes changed the game.
He's a unicorn.
So when we're talking about NBA comparisons, he changes the game.
Right.
Yeah, I'm not comparing Brock Purdy. That, again, is not an insult. Brock Purdy's having a better season. I'll ask you, Jody. He's having a better season statistically than Patrick Mahomes. Who would you rather have?
This year? Brock
Any
Purdy.
year.
Oh.
Any year.
We're talking about if you're saying who's had a better career to this point. Of course,
I can't help you if you say Brock Purdy at any stage. Yeah, exactly. I use Tommy. I mean, that's absurd. No offense. That's Patrick Mahomes.
Well, we'll see at the end of the year who has the better year, Brock Purdy or Patrick Mahomes.
No, but you're missing a point. If
Yeah.
Brock Purdy's throwing the football to Marquez Valdez-Scantling and
And
Noah Gray,
their
and
best receiver
then
right
you're
now
looking
is
at
Rashee
17 points a
Rice.
game,
Yeah.
right? He's got a great play caller, but he's also got those elite playmakers. Though all you got to do is look back to the Eagles and Chiefs game. The Chiefs playmakers didn't make plays, and the Niners playmakers made play after play. It was like taking your turn. The Chiefs just don't have playmakers right now. That's why Patrick Mahomes, his numbers are down. It's not that he's less of a player. He's as good as he ever was. He just doesn't have the weapons right now.
And I say I'm in the moment. I'm in the year. And right now, Brock Purdy is playing the best quarterback in the National Football League. So that makes him the MVP of the National Football League.
See, now why do you have to say that? Because you're just going to get Dak Prescott mad and he's going to go do something insane on Sunday. So,
if he does, then that's on the Eagles, which, oh, by the way, if you want to jump ahead to the Cowboys, we talked about matchups and the Eagles having no answer for what the 49ers wanted to run. The Eagles beat the Cowboys just a couple of weeks ago, but CeeDee Lamb owned the Eagles. 191 yards. I remember John saying the next day they threw it to him like 12 times. They should have thrown it to him 18 times. That they stopped throwing it to him, which was foolish. They should have just continued to give him the football. Couldn't agree more. What's the answer for CeeDee Lamb this week for the Eagles, Tommy?
Well, the Eagles will have Bradley Roby on the field. If you remember last time, they did not, and slot was a huge issue. Now, Roby, I was just being critical of his tackling a few minutes ago. He's better in coverage than he is at tackling. So now he's not going to come in and shut down CeeDee Lamb, but if he can just take away a couple of plays here, a couple of plays there, then all of a sudden those are drive killers. And he doesn't have to break up a pass. He just has to cover well. So Dak then all of a sudden is getting the ball to Michael Gallup, and Gallup's not a guy who's going to burn you for a huge game.
You know what? Brandon Cooks is starting to come on, though.
He is a little bit, and that's a concern.
Yeah.
There's no question. Maybe they'll put Cooks in the slot and they'll have CeeDee Lamb work outside and attack the Eagles' corners out there. Dallas is gonna move the ball. They're going to score points. You've just got to make some plays. And if you look at that first Dallas game, the defense made just enough plays to win that game. You think about the 2-point conversion where Brandon Graham forced him out short of the goal line. You think about the sack that Josh Sweat had late in the game that changed things entirely. All you got to do is make a couple plays here, a couple plays there, and all of a sudden you can win that game, even if you give up 354 yards, 28 points, 25 points, whatever. That game was 23. You just got to make a couple plays. And the Eagles didn't do that on Sunday. They made no plays. And so San Francisco's able to pile up points. The defense should be a better match for San Francisco, or for Dallas rather. So that should help them. But again, we'll see. Dallas is red hot. They haven't played anybody worth a flip, but they're red hot. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah. And Bradley was okay. He's not going to shut down CeeDee Lamb, as Tommy said, but he's competent. And they didn't have competency even at the position before.
They did not.
Speaking of competency, we haven't talked about the Eagles' late season attempt to get it at linebacker, Shaq Leonard. How much can you expect from Shaq Leonard this week, and even when he's here for a couple weeks? Do you expect him to be a starting linebacker on this team as we head down the stretch?
I would say he probably will end up starting. I don't know to happen this week because he's totally new to the defense. And in my mind, I don't think he's when he was with the Colts, he played for Matt Eberflus in that scheme. And then obviously Gus Bradley, those schemes I don't think are very much like what Sean Desai does. I could be wrong on that, but in my mind, they're very different schemes and they'll have a lot to learn. But they'll bring him in and they'll figure out some packages. Maybe they put him on the field in certain nickel situations, try him in coverage. That's been a strength of his in the past. And he's not going to be worse than Nick Morrow, is he? Right? So, you put him in there as long as he can learn the playbook and know a few key plays. And then after a couple of weeks, you would think that if you could get him and Zach Cunningham on the field at the same time.
All right. I'm going to undertake something very difficult here, Tommy. I'm going to try to defend Nick Morrow a little bit. He was terrible. I'm not defending him against San Francisco. But are we forgetting the other games this season too quickly? Because he overachieved. He was playing pretty well. He was playing much better than I expected. And then he had the big egg. And, is it as simple as He just had a bad game. Let's turn the page and see if he can get back to what he was before that game. Because you're not facing Deebo Samuel every week.
No, that's why I say, Sunday was an exaggeration. It was the worst possible matchup against these guys, and so if you had Zach Cunningham on the field, it would have helped a little bit. I'm not saying the Eagles would have won, but I think it would have had a positive effect. To not have him and have to go against them, it just put a lot of pressure on Morrow, Christian Ellis, and the Niners just went into a frenzy, and the results were bad. If you watch Morrow over the course of the season, he's at his best as an attacking downhill linebacker. Think about the times he had sacks, right? He finished plays. He had tackles for loss.
Yeah.
He almost had the safety against Tampa. He's had plays where he shot in the backfield. So he runs well. And generally, if he's going downhill, he'll tackle well. Where he struggles is moving side to side and reading plays. He just, he's obviously a bright guy, but, listen, getting on the field and trying to read an offense and doing that in a matter of 1.5 to 2.5 seconds, that's a specific skill that goes beyond just general intelligence. And he struggles a little bit with that. And then in coverage, he just doesn't show a good feel for things. At least we haven't seen that this year. So if you use him a certain way and let him attack downhill, then you're in good shape. If you haven't do the other things, he's struggling. The problem right now is Christian Ellis is kind of the same way. He's looked at his best when attacking downhill. Well, you can't have both linebackers attack downhill. You've got to have somebody who's in the middle of the defense, taking on blockers, finding the football, and then obviously getting back in coverage, playing the passing lanes. And it just didn't happen on Sunday.
Not a good sign for this week coming up against the Cowboys because, sorry, Eagle fans, I just got to give you the stats and the fact. Cowboys have weapons. The CeeDee Lamb is the biggest weapon, but they've got other wide receivers. Pollard out of the backfield, and the guy that I just did not see coming, Jake Ferguson, he had a big game against the Eagles and has had a very good year.
Good player.
The Cowboys isn't like, all right, if you stop this guy, you keep Nick Morrow away from having to cover that play. They got a lot of weapons. So if you're going to use your linebacker in coverage, it's going to be Morrow, and he could get taken advantage of. Sorry to say, Eagle fans, but that's what they're facing, the task they're facing this week against the Cowboys. All right. Tommy, I'm going to ask you just a couple of quick questions. One-word answers, if that's okay. Who did the Eagles sign yesterday? Shaq Leonard, right. And who cut Shaq Leonard?
Colts.
And they're coached by who?
Steichen.
James Steichen. All right. Eagles might have some interest in a free agent tight end, and that would be
Ertz.
And
you said one-word answer, so I'm giving you one-word answers.
He was cut by who?
Gannon.
There you go. There could be an investigation. Somehow Shaq Leonard shakes free and lands in Philadelphia. His former head coach gets the benefit from a cut by a team, and Zach Ertz does the same thing. And in this case, Zach Ertz instigated. He wanted out. He said, let me get the hell out of here, and he even gave up a game check to do so. Why? So he can potentially go back to Philadelphia. John said the other day, and I agree with him, the team that might have even made more sense to the Eagles was the Ravens. John Harbaugh came out and said yesterday, no, we like our guys. We're good.
That's
even though Leonard is down.
That is surprising.
Yeah. So Zach Ertz.
Maybe he knows. Maybe he knows he's got no chance. That's
listen, I haven't watched a lot of the Cardinals this year. I've seen Zach on a few plays, and he hasn't done anything special. Maybe he's washed up, but maybe that was Harbaugh's way of doing him a solid. Yeah, and just saying we like our guys.
Okay, here's my take on that, because you said the same thing. Somebody said social media or said it to me on WIP last night. Zach Ertz is washed. Is Zach Ertz better than Greg Calcaterra right now, right here, right now? Would you rather have, if you're Jalen Hurts, need a play made, you got two tight ends set, you got to throw the ball, the only open guy is your other tight end, not Dallas Goedert. Would you rather throw it to Zach Ertz or Greg Calcaterra?
I'll take Ertz for several reasons.
That's all you got to know. That's all you have to know. You can't compare Zach Ertz. Oh, my God, he's nowhere near the Zach Ertz of 2018. Of course he's not. He doesn't need to be. You shouldn't expect him to be. He's 5 years older. All you need to know is he better than the other tight end we're using when we go to those formations, a guy who can catch the football? And if he's better than Calcaterra, Eagles have to bring him in today.
Yeah, we haven't. I didn't see anything before the show, so I don't know if they've scheduled anything. But you would
No, it's
think,
not official yet. This is Jody McDonald just suggesting what the Eagles should do. I
yeah.
think
Well, you think if they're
it's
going
a
to
pretty
bring him
good
in, it
bet.
would happen today, so they could potentially have him on the field on Sunday.
Yeah,
Because why wait?
you would think.
He's not getting any younger.
Here's my issue with Zach at this point. And it's got nothing to do with being washed. And Jody's right. He's got to be better. The Eagles, by the way, so out of nowhere, Albert Agwegbanon, I just like to say the name, got 32 reps, more than anybody. He got more than Stoll, who had 26 against San Francisco. Calcaterra, back from the high ankle sprain, got 13. They threw the football to the tight end once. Alberto, of course, he didn't catch it.
Didn't get the catch.
They don't even look at anybody other than Dallas Goedert. And it's been that way since he's been out. But here's the problem. If you're playing 12 personnel, Tommy, and it's Goddard and Ertz, you got to play Goddard in line. They don't want to play Goddard in line. Are you going to play Ertz in line? That doesn't make sense. So you're almost forced to play Goddard where you don't want to play him because Zach's not a good enough blocker. And at this stage, Dallas is a better receiver. So you want Dallas flexed out, but you can't flex him out. But with Stoll, you can flex him out. So I don't know if the fit is necessarily there with Zach Ertz when Dallas comes back.
I'll disagree with you a little there. I think Zach can play inline and block. Early in his career, he was an awful blocker.
Yes. He got better.
He was embarrassing
got better.
His first 2 years.
Not a strength, though. It never.
No, but he got to be. I like to use tight ends. One of the things coaches will teach tight ends is lose slowly.
Yeah.
So not even asking him to win the block, they just say lose slowly. In other words, just delay the guy.
Yes.
And he can do that. And I would qualify him, at least the last time I saw him play for the Eagles, as an effective blocker. Dallas Goedert's a flat-out good blocker. Jack Stoll's pretty good. I think Zach is an effective blocker. I think he at least understands position and effort, things like that now as a veteran where he can shield the guy. And he's not going to drive a guy 5 yards off the ball, but I think he can be an effective blocker. So I think you can still play him in line and do what you want to do with moving guys around.
If Dallas was out long term, and he's going to be back in Dallas, ironically, I would say, yeah, go get him. 100% go get him. Now he's going to be back. I'm not going to just bring him in as an insurance policy. Why
wouldn't you, John? You're going to lose Grant Calcaterra? Oh, my God. They could potentially lose Grant Calcaterra. What the hell are the Eagles thinking? He's Grant Calcaterra.
Well, and that –
Jody, what I'll tell you, Jody, is you do have a locker room and you do have personalities. Jack Stoll's been there for 2 years. He's played on special teams. He's been a blocker. He's done all the dirty work.
Jack Stoll, the guy who lost his reps to Albert O this past week. That's the guy you worried about. Oh my God, we can't play that tight end less than we have. They just did.
But what sign are you sending to the rest of the team of
we need to get to the Super Bowl as a sign you're sending the team?
You're disposable.
We need to field the best 53-man roster we can.
Yeah, you do. So the question is, how much of an upgrade is Zach Ertz over Jack Stoll? Listen, I'm telling you, I would make the move. Like I'd bring him in, but I'm telling you, it's not like just a no-brainer.
Not a slam dunk.
Because obviously, if it was, they would have
done it. You
guys
keep comparing him to Jack Stoll. Jack Stoll's going to have his role. Jack Stoll's going nowhere fast. He's replacing Albert O and/or Grant Calcaterra, and if he can't understand it, and that was part of the reason I think they traded Zach, because he wasn't ready to pass the torch to Dallas Goedert. Sorry, Zach, we're passing the torch. And if that means we got to send you elsewhere, we'll send you elsewhere. And they did. So if he doesn't buy in, and I'm sure they've already had this meeting, at least on the phone, if not in person, here's what we expect. Here's the role we see for you, Zach. Are you good with it? If the answer isn't yes, an emphatic yes, then you move on and you don't even bother. But if he says, I'll do anything, I just want to get back to the Eagles. I want to see you guys take another shot at the ball. I want to be part of that, and I'll play any role you want me to. Well, then you sign the guy.
Well, I'm going to go to where I always go, where nobody goes. Roster building is a science. Howie's generally very good at it. If you're
But he's
the
not
third,
infallible.
no, he's not. He makes mistakes all the time. If you're a third tight end on game day, you got to play special teams. And it was ironic. Nick Sirianni talked about what the offense needs to clean up yesterday, what the defense, a ton of stuff to clean up. And he said, special teams pretty good. He's like, that's been a solid unit all year. Nobody cares about it. They cared about it last year when it wasn't solid. It's been very solid this year, especially since Braden Mann has kind of taken off as the punter. Grant Calcaterra plays on special teams. He got 13 reps on special teams.
How many reps did Alberto play on special teams?
Alberto wasn't the third tight end. Grant Calcaterra was the third tight end. I'm saying
What's
if
the
you're
difference?
the third
tight end, if you're a tight end and you're dressed, when you're depicting what number 1, 2, 3, how does that affect special teams? You can play anybody you want on special teams, right? You don't have to dictate your number one tight end will not play.
If you dress 3 tight ends, somebody's got to play special teams, and if nobody can play special teams,
that for me would be Calcaterra. And again, if
what,
you're telling me
what are you dressing? Are you dressing 4 tight ends?
No,
because you have Goddard. I'm saying you have Goddard. So
understood.
If you have
Goddard,
if you have
if you say you've got to keep Calcaterra for his special teams over Alberto, okay, that's your call.
No, I'm saying it's Goddard, it's Stoll, and it's Calcaterra or Ertz. Forget about Albert. Albert's not even going to dress. You're not dressing 4 tight ends. So it's going to be Goddard, it's going to be Stoll, and it's going to be Ertz or Calcaterra. That's your decision. Ertz or Calcaterra, because Stoll's not going anywhere. Who would you rather have? Is Ertz a better tight end? Of course he's a better tight end. But he's not a number 3 tight end because he can't play special teams. Roles matter, and fits matter. And I always say wide receiver is the best example of this, because if you're a 4th or 5th wide receiver, you got to do something on special teams, and everybody wants big names every year because they love big names. Bring in so-and-so gets cut. They want big names. Somebody's got to play on these units, which have been very good this year and very helpful to the Eagles' success.
All right. You would know this better than me, John. And Tommy, thanks for just sitting in. Well, John and I go back and forth.
Sorry. Sorry, Tommy. Sorry.
Yeah, I apologize too. Calcaterra missed several games. Who picked up his special team snaps?
I will look at them. Stoll always plays on special teams, so his numbers probably went up, but I'm looking at it.
It's probably Ben Van Sumeren. I know he was active for a couple of games.
Ben's part of the 53 now. It'll be interesting, by the way, while I'm looking this up. I'll look at the Buffalo game. Who they have to. Shaq Leonard, by the way, I don't know if I mentioned it. He's going to start on the 53. So I did confirm that with the Eagles. The Eagles haven't signed him yet. One of the reasons they've agreed to terms. One of the reasons they haven't signed him yet is because they have to figure out the roster move.
Create a roster spot.
It's probably either going to be Ben or one of the tight ends, to be honest. Yeah, Stoll played 10. Noah Tungiai was who I couldn't come up with, played 12. Noah Tungiai. So he was elevated as the 3rd tight end. So, I mean, that's a role. That's a role they have. And the upbacks on kickoff returns, not that it's important because they barely ever return a kick, but the upbacks are Stoll and the other tight end. And those are the guys who block the first blocks on the kickoff returns.
Yeah, I'd be willing to roll with Zach Ertz again if he accepts his role on the team, and if he doesn't, then Zach will get put tickets aside for you for the championship game against the 49ers. You and Julie come on down. But if he accepts it and you can explain the role that you want him to play, and he says I'm good with it, give me a set of shoulder pads, coach. I'm signing him as soon as possible.
I don't know. And you got Quez playing again. He doesn't play special teams.
Let me ask both you, Tommy. Let me ask you. Last game, Quez Watkins played more snaps than Olamide Zaccheaus and Julio Jones combined. Why does the coach love Quez Watkins?
Speed, right? He's got deep speed.
So they should sign Deshaun since he's back. He signed a one-day contract. Get him back out there on the field because I guarantee he's still got speed. Come on, it's got to be more than that.
Listen, I don't know. Sirianni's an old wide receivers coach, an old wide receiver. There's something he sees in Quez he likes. Quez frustrates the heck out of me, so I don't know what it is. I think part of it, though, we do have to factor in. Last week's game was an anomaly in so many ways.
Yeah.
The Eagles were so far behind. They had to play in 4 wide receivers.
Well, that's,
and
you're trying
to make plays and be vertical. So you want Watkins out there. Julio Jones ain't doing you any good when you're down 16 and 23 points.
Yeah, Tommy's right. Like we just talked about the tight ends. Stoll would have played more than Albert if the game wasn't a blowout. He would have played more. But when you've got to throw the ball, you need somebody with some movement skills to be in the game. And I think that's why Albert and Quez played so much. And obviously it didn't work, but it's not a good sign. And Julio's banged up as well. He's not 100%. So I think all that factored in.
Right. And I know I'm simplistic, and I readily admit to it, and I judge results after the fact. Quez Watkins, 4 targets, 28 yards. Somehow that speed is getting him out there with the ability to go 7 yards an attempt.
Yeah, the deep throw should have been a PI. Should have been a PI. Now he also should have went after the ball. He's got to have more savvy to come back and draw the pass interference and make it more clear. But if that is a proper call, you see sort of some of the impact that Nick Sirianni talks about. But Julio's, remember, he was on the injury report all last week with a knee, so he's banged up. So that factored into it as well.
I think Olamide comes back for that ball and maybe draws the PI. Not so much Quest. Tommy, we are out of time. We love having you out here on the show. Thank you very much for doing so. He had some really good posts leading up to the 49er game and afterwards. I'm sure he's going to have good ones this week about the Cowboy game coming up on Sunday. So make sure you get to Eagles, IGGLES Blitz.com. Tommy, a pleasure. We'll get you up again in the next couple of weeks. Thanks, bud.
Let's try to talk after a non-blowout next time.
Yeah.
All right, take care.
You got it.
Thanks, Tommy. I was going to guarantee it's not going to be, but I can't guarantee that. Dallas is good at home.
I was going to say the only potential blowout is this week, right? They're not going to go to Seattle and get blown out.
By the way, I don't think they're getting blown out, but Dallas is capable, certainly at home.
Right. They're the only team left that you would say is capable. Good choice of words by you. And, oh, by the way, I don't think we mentioned it. We're an hour and 2 minutes into the show. In case you don't already know, Eagles are underdog again this week. And I expected it after taking the beatdown they did from San Francisco and Dallas being as good as they are at home. I expected the Eagles to be an underdog. I didn't know where it was going to fall. I thought it would be around 3. If you had asked me to project and predict ahead of time, I would have said 2.5. It's 3.5. Cowboys are 3.5-point favorites at home, which means, again, on a neutral field, the Cowboys would be a favorite over the Philadelphia Eagles right now. If you believe the line moves 3 points for the home team, the Cowboys would be a half-point choice ahead of the Philadelphia Eagles. So the underdog mentality did not show itself this past week against San Francisco. Are they going back there against the Cowboys this week? We will see. He's McMullen. I'm McDonald. You got Mac and Mac here on Birds 365.